Hello, everyone. Hola todos. Welcome back to the Tiki Tapas Podcast. This is episode 5. This is international break. We are also kind of running a little bit of break amongst ourselves, which is why this episode is coming a little bit later than usual. But don't worry, don't fret. We are going to be back to regular programming from next week. And as a surprise, Rahul, we are officially on Spotify and any streaming platform that you prefer. So you can listen to us anywhere now.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming that we're heading to Spotify, and a lot of people have asked me when you're getting on there, when you're going on there. So, yeah, we're finally on there, and now you don't have to look at our faces; you can just listen to us speak about football.
Yeah, whichever way you prefer. Maybe for some of you like to look at our faces, some of you don't like to look at our faces. Well, for you guys, we have completely opened up the box, and you guys can choose at your leisure, choose at your preference. But we will keep coming at you every week. We won't stop, whether you want to see us, hear us, or not. But before we begin this episode, March has been a great month. It's the month where we started our podcast. It's the month where Champions League matches delivered for Spanish teams. All 6 teams qualified in their European competitions. But with March ending after the international break and April coming up, I think this month, Rahul, also promises to bring a lot of excitement, don't you think?
Yeah, I think this is a month where everything starts to heat up. The title race will have a clearer idea what it will look like by the end of the month. Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. We're getting into the make or break kind of time, the knockouts, the semi-finals, quarterfinals, the other competitions. And yeah, we've got a Copa del Rey final coming up, which is always an exciting time in Spanish football. And yeah, it's always a really, really fun part of the season. It's my favorite time of the year, really.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. You said it's the make or break time. So many seasons, so many times we've seen teams get completely derailed because they lose their momentum right after the international break. Barcelona has been a culprit of it. At some years down the line, Valencia were having a good run, and then they completely capitulated before entering the month of April. Has happened to Real Madrid as well. So I think, especially with so many competitions. I mean, not for every team, but if you look at a team like Atleti, they have 3 competitions they're going to be playing in: Copa del Rey final, the La Liga. Of course, they are not in La Liga contention, but they are still within the third and fourth kind of battle with Villarreal, and of course the Champions League where they face Barcelona, which is why we're going to talk about that for a second. First, it's like Barcelona and Atletico Madrid have already faced each other 3 times this season, right? Or rather 4 maybe. Maybe they no, it was 3. They didn't face each other in the Super Copa. It was 3. Now they're gonna face each other 3 times again in the next 10 days. So what and we've seen like a mixed bag of results, so far this season. I mean, of course, Barcelona have been more dominating, but and Atleti kind of they started the season so good. They were the one who dethroned Real Madrid from their unbeaten streak at the start of the season. But now as April is coming up, you know, and Atletico Madrid have the Copa del Rey to think about, the Champions League to think about, and La Liga as well. They're facing Barcelona. What do you expect from Atletico Madrid? How will they set up? Will they really kind of play the La Liga game against Barcelona in more of a casual way because they want to protect themselves for the Copa del Rey and Champions League ties? What would Simeone be thinking at this point of time?
Well, one thing that has been common throughout the season for Atleti has been rotation, and we're going to see a lot of that in those 3 games. I think all the focus will be on the Champions League. I think the La Liga game, you might as well write it off and give it to Barcelona already. I don't think Atleti will care in the world if they lose there, as long as they get through in the Champions League.
Mhm.
So I think you're going to see potentially 3 very different lineups in all 3 games. And then comes the question of how does Diego Simeone manage these 2-legged ties? Because that's been a strength of his in the past, where Atleti reached 2 finals under him and he navigated tough teams, including Barcelona.
Yeah.
And he knows how to set teams up over 2 legs. But that's not necessarily been the case with this iteration of Atletico Madrid. And we saw in the Copa del Rey where they were brilliant in the first leg. They ripped Barcelona apart. It was 4-0.
Mhm.
But with any 2 other teams, you'd almost write off the idea of a comeback. But with the way Atleti and Barca played in that second leg, where Barca were brilliant. It was one of their best performances of the season. They won 3-0, but fell short.
Yeah.
For Atleti, it was one of their worst. And tactically, I think he got it completely wrong in that game, where he invited loads of pressure, his substitutions, his lineup decisions, it all went wrong. It was just, he was lucky to get through.
Yeah.
And I think both Hansi Flick and Simeone will have lessons to learn from how that Copa del Rey semi-final played out. But the question is, who will learn more from them? Because I think if Atleti do what they did in the Copa del Rey, but they try the same routine again, where first leg they go all out attack and second leg they kind of just invite all the pressure, I don't think they get away with it again. I think Barcelona will have the edge if they try that same, not stupid, but ridiculous kind of tactic.
I think also the second leg is at the Metropolitano, if I'm not wrong, for the Champions League tie. So and Metropolitano is where all the dark magic happens for Atletico Madrid. Players start to magically slip. No one can control the ball, and even the second leg against Spurs. Spurs, Barca. The common element that they both had was they played better second legs when they play at their own stadiums compared to when they played at the Metropolitano. So is it really home advantage? Is it really the pitch? Is it really the way Diego Simeone thinks he's just a class apart where he knows he can just finish off the game in the first leg and can just like casually lay it down for the second leg. So a lot of things to think about, because Atleti will also have the Copa del Rey's final against the Real Sociedad as well. So that's also something they will be looking forward to.
Yeah, and it's been a strange theme with Atleti this season where home and away, they're like two different teams. And as you say, I think the stadium has a lot to do with it. I think going away to the Metropolitano with the atmosphere, with the pitch, with the players you face, with the way they set up at home, I think there's not a team in the world that can go there and comfortably win. But then when they go away from home, they really don't look anywhere near as threatening. And we saw that against Spurs. They, again, nearly threw away a big lead. And it's just crazy how different they can look in different scenarios, despite having a big squad. And you'd think that the whole thing would be Simeone adapts his lineups to the level of opposition and to the style of opposition. So some games Pubel will be in, some games Llorente will be in, some games Lenormand will be in, and the same goes up front. He's got, 5 different attackers at his disposal? And we go with Alvarez and Griezmann at home and maybe go for Sorloth away from home.
Yeah.
A more vitality, but he rarely ever changes the lineups in the way you'd think he would. And yeah, over 2 legs, it's tough to see them. It's tough to see them getting through if they kind of have a huge defeat at the Camp Nou. So I think they're very much capable of going 4-0 up in the first leg. I don't think they can recover 4-0 deficit if it comes to it.
Yeah.
Camp Nou in the first leg is I don't back any team in the world to go there and beat Barcelona right now.
That would be something, yeah.
Like, as soon as you open the game up against them, you can get ripped apart. And this Atleti team is not the Atleti of the past, where you'd have a strong base, you have defenders fighting for their lives, Diego Godin and Jose Jimenez and Juanfran, Felipe Luis. Like, they're the kind of defenders you hate to play against, but it's been far from the case in the Champions League. They've been conceding goals left, right, and centre. And it's going to be fascinating. I think it's going to be another really amazing two games to watch, just like the Copa del Rey semis.
Right, 100%. I agree with you. And Metropolitano, as you said, is probably the hardest stadiums. Both Metropolitano and Camp Nou are one of the hardest stadiums to play in for any team. But if you talk about stadiums in Spain, well, the international break was on, and the Spanish national team played in Spain 2 games. I watched the games, and the first game against Serbia was quite interesting. Mikel Oyarzabal got a brace. Second game against Egypt, it was a more experimental game. I didn't really kind of see that this is like what Luis de la Fuente wants for the World Cup, and he was just like trying around. So let's move on from the league. And let's talk about a little bit about the international break and the Spanish national team and the World Cup preparations. For me, I felt like the game yesterday was just like a throwaway game. Like he had to play, he had the players at his disposal. He was doing some calculations, some seeing some sort of combinations whether it would work. He was trying to see where Ferran stands in terms of the striking position because Oyarzabal didn't play a minute. He was trying to play around with the midfield. Pedri was also benched. Um, a lot of how, how would you say that the teams that we saw in the two games are kind of which one of them would you rather have when you pick the World Cup squad? Like, would you pick anyone who started yesterday? Did you see any performance that you think was like, okay, maybe this guy? Because I saw Ferran Torres play, and I don't think I would take him to the World Cup. No way.
Well,
Uh,
well, yeah. Spain's problem is that up front, Samu Agueroa is injured, and Mikel Merino is currently injured. That's two very good options at number 9, and either of them, I think, would have 100% been in the squad. Well, both of them would have been. And Merino may still make it, but I think Spain see him as midfielder anyway. He plays as a false nine at Arsenal at time. Does very well there. I just can't believe some of the selections in this squad. And not in terms of the first 11. I think the first 11 isn't set in stone, but it makes a lot of sense whoever plays. Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, Lamine Yamal, obviously. The second 11, the kind of backup players, I made a video on this the other day. I couldn't believe some of the midfield selections, and it's weird that I'm saying this wearing a Real Sociedad shirt right now, but for me, Carlos Soler is a good player who's experienced, but there's better options than him. And I think
I was surprised too.
the first half against Egypt showed the limitations of a Soler, Fornals, and was it Dani Olmo midfield? And I think Fornals definitely deserves his place. He's been brilliant for Real Betis. And I'm not saying Soler's been bad. He's been very good for Real Sociedad these last few months. But in terms of profile, I think at any given point, and I know injury prevented this, at any given point, one of Rodri or Zubimendi has to be on the pitch. And I think if Mikel Merino won't make the final squad, there needs to be a different profile with a bit more legs in the midfield. And that for me is Santi Comisania. And yes, my Villarreal bias here, but I think they have at their disposal, Spain, probably the biggest range of profiles available to them out of anyone in the World Cup. But in Soler, in Fornals, they're picking players that don't really offer anything too differently to what the first 11 do. Whereas off the bench, for example, you can get Comisania in, he'll win the duels in midfield, he will link up play really well, and he'll get forward, which is something that Soler does a bit less. And that for me was a baffling decision, and I don't think we learned anything from Soler starting and coming off against Egypt. I don't think he earned himself a place. I don't think it gave a chance to someone who hasn't really played much. And so, yeah, I was a bit baffled by that. But the team is starting to right itself. It just depends on injuries. It'll mostly be the kind of lineup from Euro 2024. And why not? Because they won and they played very well. A question for on the left wing is if Nico Williams is injured, who replaces him? And there were a few wildcard options in the squad. Barranquilla from Sociedad, Victor Munoz from Osasuna. Again, my Villarreal bias here, but Alberto Molero for me had to be in the squad. He's been probably one of the best in the league in that position. He's got a lot of speed, a lot of technique. He's someone who can even just come off the bench and make a difference. It might even be Alex Baena there, even though he's not had his best season. And then, so the left wing, there's plenty of options, but if Nico's fit, then it's got to be him, even though he's not had his best season. Up front, even though we said about Samu, about Merino, Jorge Iglesias is there, our favourite Unk. I think it will be, and rightly so, Mikel Oyarzabal.
What a form he's in though. Like I can't believe I'm saying like 2.5 years ago, before Luis de la Fuente took over, I don't think I would have said that going to the 2026 World Cup, I would love for Mikel Oyarzabal to be my striker, because he wasn't. I don't think he was really an out and out striker. Even though he liked to play on the left a lot. He used to like come inside. Even Real Sociedad, he started off his career like that, and he wasn't really that lethal. If you see it before, like he made his debut for Spain 2016, played one game, then only made his second appearance in 2019, scored on that game, and then until Luis de la Fuente took over, he had like 5 goals to his name in the first 7 8 years of his career. And then suddenly, under Luis de la Fuente, in the last 3 years, he scored 17 goals, which is like the highest for any player under de la Fuente. And we have all realized, watching Spain performance in 2024 Euros, that Luis de la Fuente has completely revitalized the team. It's not like that slow tiki taka anymore. It's not like a 1,000 pass and one shot kind of team anymore. It's more energetic. It's more vertical. Do you think a change like that has certainly benefited Oyarzabal more than any other player? Because you expect players like Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams to kind of like do whatever they do on the wing, but for the number 9, for which Spain does better without a fixed number 9, and Oyarzabal is not a fixed number 9. So, do you think that has kind of played into his hands? Like it's kind of like boosted his abilities, his quality in front of goal?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Oyarzabal throughout his career, he's not been the quickest, and so when he was on the left wing,
Mm,
it didn't really make too much sense at international level. Obviously, for Real Sociedad, it's different. The team is built more around him,
mm,
but through the middle as a false nine, he links play so well. He drops in, and with the wingers Spain have, that's why it works. I
mm,
think with Nico and Yamal, he will just make the space for them. He'll get the ball to them. And he almost plays this selfless role where he's not looking to get on the score sheet and
mm,
kind of just be laser focused on goal like a number 9 would. But we saw in the Euro 2024, that wasn't his best season for Real Sociedad, but he was still
mm.
given the trust up front, and then he went and scored the winner in the final. And he played very well throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
And this has actually been his best season statistically. And it was a bit of a slow start for Real Sociedad. They had problems with management.
Yeah.
Since Pellegrino Materazzi's come in, Oyarzabal's been on fire. And
Yeah.
he's not the only one. Soler's been very good, despite me criticizing him about
Yeah.
10 minutes ago. And Gonzalo Guedes has been in the best form of his career since about 2022.
Mhm.
But Oyarzabal certainly benefited at club level. And then it will translate into international, where he plays with players like Rodri and Yamal and Zubimendi who can get the ball to him. And when he finds those pockets of space at the edge of the box, he's so clinical and he's such a good technical finisher that, yeah, I think Spain, again, like they did with Cesc Fabregas back in the 2012, they can happily play with a false 9. And I do think there has to be at least one number 9 on the bench. I think that is just a given in club football and in
Mhm.
international football. I think you can't have a squad without any, not old school number 9, but just someone who occupies those zones close to the box. You have to have that option at least.
Mhm.
But when you have that in someone like Iglesias, who's experienced, who's had a very good season in front of goal, who can come on and provide a bit of physicality as well, you could almost play him with Oyarzabal, and he can drop back into kind of midfield. He can go to the left. So yeah, I think if you're looking at players who will be key for Spain in this tournament, Oyarzabal is definitely up there.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And you mentioned a good point that there has to be a proper number 9 kind of backing you up in the bench. It's something we will talk about, I think, in a little bit later. I think there's an interesting topic coming up about players who we think personally, more players that I think who should be kind of getting the spotlight before the World Cup. We're probably not getting that much attention right now. But before we jump into that topic, let me just quickly bring to your attention the goalkeeping situation in Spain, because we just talked about the top, we just talked about the forward line. Let's just look down south. What's happening with the goalkeeping situation? Everyone on the internet who supports Arsenal or who supports Barca have been clamoring Luis de la Fuente, calling him all sorts of names: Baldy, Bald Fraud, Fraudiola, whatever you want to call him. They've been saying, why are you playing Unai Simon as your number 1? Even though he's not having the greatest of club seasons at Athletic Club. Um, David Raya is on his way to win the Premier League. Joan Garcia is on his way to win the La Liga. They are one of the best keepers in their respective leagues. And when Joan Garcia and Unai Simon faced off against each other in the league, Joan Garcia absolutely wiped the floor, in that performance, in that match. So why? I mean, there's a lot of people who don't know why Unai Simon is so preferred. Like, and it's normal. Not a lot of people are sitting down watching athletic club games. So, but we are here to change that perspective on why Unai Simon is kind of getting that game time or getting the preferential treatment from Luis de la Fuente. I mean, before we get into more technical aspects, I would just say that it's not that easy to change the number one for a national team, especially a, a team that he has not put a single foot wrong for Spain. Yeah, for Athletic Club, he's made so many mistakes. In against Barcelona and a couple of games as well, he's made mistakes. But he's won Euro 2024 with them. I mean, you cannot. It's like if Casillas is winning Euros 2012 with the Spain, you just can't bring David De Gea next season to replace him just because he's been having a better season at the club level. So why do you think fans are reacting like that? I mean, you yourself have some sort of affinity towards David Raya. I have affinity towards John Garcia. We both want to see our guys play the national team, but we also agree Unai Simon is not the worst option to have leading from the back.
Well, I think it's very easy for fans of Arsenal and Barcelona to lay into Unai Simon because in pure goalkeeping aspects and in form this season, you put him third by a distance in if you're ranking Raya, Garcia, and Simon.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're asking me who the better goalkeeper is, I'd say David Raya. If you ask me who the most complete goalkeeper is, for me, it's David Raya in terms of his cross claiming, his aerials. He's, for me, the best in the world at claiming the ball out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of Arsenal's incredible defence has been Raya. If you ask me who the best shot stopper is, and especially in big moments, that would be Joan Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with saves inside the box, he trumps Simon despite facing far less.
Mm-hmm.
And Garcia has been unbelievable for Barcelona, and he was unbelievable for Espanyol last season. And he will one day be Spain's number one, possibly even at the next tournament,
Yeah,
given the ages of Simon and Raya.
yeah,
If you ask me who I would start at the World Cup, it's Unai Simon.
yeah.
And Luis de la Fuente, I agree with him because I think the thing that club football fans, and especially ones who, say, for example, well, a bit like me, aren't Spain fans, all you look at is the quality of goalkeeper, and you're thinking Raya has arguably been the best goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. He'll win the Golden Glove for the third year in a row. He has been a huge, huge part of arguably the best defense in Europe. So why is he not starting at the World Cup? But the reason for that is just international football dynamics.
Yeah.
And in general, coaching dynamics will play a much bigger part because if you ask any coach, and I've asked people this here and there, and it's the same, it's similar in club football to how you promise a keeper a cup final, and that happened at Arsenal. Kepa started a final and it backfired. But the coach will say that you've got to back your man. And Simon is a huge, huge presence in the dressing room. He is a leader. He's been there for several tournaments. He has won the tournament playing superbly. And for Spain, he's never, ever put a foot wrong. So to drop him it wouldn't just necessarily upset him. You shouldn't be too worried about upsetting one player, but it will completely disrupt the dynamics. Imagine he is dropped, your reliable number one who's been there and done it in several tournaments, and he's dropped for someone who's barely ever played at a tournament, despite his good club form. And then imagine that first game, Raya or Garcia makes a huge mistake. Then
Exactly. Yeah.
it creates this hostile environment. You keep Simon in, you back him, and only if he has an absolute calamity, a bit like Casillas in 2014, then you think about bringing another keeper in. And Spain have the best goalkeeper depth in the world, so that's not something they need to worry about. If Simon does badly, fine, you drop him. If he doesn't, then you stick with a reliable keeper. And any coach would agree with that. They would say, you back your man, you back your big dressing room presence, you back the goalkeeper that's got you there. So that's why I would start Simon. But then looking at the other two keepers, if it's a toss-up between who would replace him on, for me, it's Raya, not Garcia.
Mhm.
Partly experience. He's played a little bit for Spain. He's played just club level football a lot longer. He's well integrated into the dressing room. And I do feel for Alex Ramiro here because he's also a massive leader in that dressing room. He's been captain of Real Sociedad here and there. And he was kept as a kind of third option for that reason, as a
Mm.
figure of authority in the dressing room. But he's had to make way for Joan Garcia. And a few months ago, I could have even seen a situation where Garcia doesn't even make the play just because of the dynamics. But
Mm.
I think it's now become a case that Ramiro has not had his best season and Garcia has been just far too good to leave out,
Yeah,
that you have to have him at least on the plane just for optics' sake.
yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. It's a debate that we're going to hear a hell of a lot about
Oh,
in the
yeah,
next months. But
definitely.
yeah, for me, even though on a pure goalkeeping level, David Raya for me should be at the World Cup in a team aiming to win the tournament. You can't drop Simon now. And he has had a few errors. Statistically, I was going through some stats earlier and it didn't actually show up. It said errors 0 compared to the other two. But we know that's a lie. We saw against Espanyol, he had a calamity a few months ago.
Yeah,
Against Barcelona, when Rooney scored, it wasn't a good look for him. But
yeah, yeah.
in big moments, he's still a very good goalkeeper and he still can sweep as well. He's not a limited goalkeeper by any stretch. He's someone who can come off his line, who can claim in the air as well. He can do everything. He's good. He's always been a well-rounded goalkeeper, and at the top of his game, then there won't be any questions about him at all.
Yeah, you're right. And Alex Ramiro, I also kind of feel bad for him because he's been on the fringes for so long. He's been always like promised, like, okay, once this generation of keepers, they move on, maybe that's when you're gonna get your chance. You're gonna get your chance. But then Joan Garcia just came out of nowhere, past two seasons, took Spain, took La Liga by storm, and has now forced himself into the goalkeeping picture for Spain. And as you said, Unai Simon, if you just like put him out right now, I think this was the last proper FIFA friendlies window before the World Cup preparation start. So can you imagine, like 10 days before the World Cup, you just tell Unai Simon, "Oh, I'm gonna start David Raya or Joan Garcia over you." It's gonna the whole team, the dressing room is gonna uproot itself. The morale, the uncertainty of your position, it's gonna affect every single player in every other position. If the goalkeeping spot, who this guy has held down for so long without making any errors, suddenly goes to the guy who has played one good season, let's say Joan Garcia or David Raya, who's been consistent more than Joan Garcia, then midfielders would start to wonder, maybe if I put one foot wrong, I'm gonna be benched, I'm gonna be axed, and that's gonna affect their performances as well. Like, oh shit, I can't put one mistake, I can make one pass wrong, and then I'm out. That's how strict the rules are. So yeah, I think 100% Unai Simon is the number one. Should be is not the question we're talking about, but will be. Yeah, he's definitely gonna be the number one. And from what we've seen with his performances with the Spanish colors, I don't have any fear in my head. I don't think he's gonna botch. He's gonna butcher up some mistakes. But and if he does, then Spain has the best goalkeeping bench in the world, and they are stacked completely. So we talked about goalkeepers, we talked about strikers, and I think Spain has a great squad depth. But with the amount of football that's played in Spain, there's like 9 divisions of Spanish football, 4 professional, 5 semi-professional, amateur. There's so many players all the time coming up, so many players fighting for positions in the national team, in the under 20s, under 19s. Um, you already mentioned to a few players that you think should make it to the World Cup. From what I've read on the internet, and I'm only talking about the big teams for this situation because there are names. Because these discussions all often come up with the big teams, like, okay, this player is performing so well for a big team. Why is he not in the national team? There's one name that has been really, really kind of piling up for the last a month or so, or rather since January, and that's Real Madrid striker Gonzalo Garcia. He's been a proper number 9 for Real Madrid, someone that they haven't had, and Mbappe with the Joselu, Mbappe. Then after Joselu left, Mbappe was not number 9 that they wanted. But Gonzalo Garcia came out of nowhere in the Club World Cup, established himself as the proper number 9. And now fans, just like they're doing with Joan Garcia, just like they're doing it, David Raya, Real Madrid fans are saying, "Oh, we don't have enough representation in the national team. Why are you not taking an out and out number 9 like Gonzalo Garcia to the team?" Similarly, Barcelona fans are clamoring for Marc Bernal to go to the national team because he's playing, but he's playing for the under 21s. You know, Atleti fans want Mark Prubil in the team. So this whole dynamic, how does it like? What do you do when you have so many good players fighting for so many positions? Do you make a B team and play 2 teams at the World Cup? Is it possible? Do you make a new country, send everyone to Gibraltar and let them represent Gibraltar? Like, what do you do when you have so much talent in a country?
It is such a difficult dilemma because as much as we've sat here and questioned some of the squad selection decisions,
Yeah.
I think no matter who is selected, there will
Mhm.
always be someone having a moan. And
Mhm.
that just speaks volumes to the level of depth that Spain have across Europe and in La Liga,
Mhm.
the amount of young talent coming through. And yeah, because I don't think Spain under 21s could give it a good go in a tournament. That's how good they are. That's how much talent is there. You
Yeah.
think about players that you mentioned, Mark Bernal, Gonzalo Garcia,
Yeah.
neither of them might be on the plane, but in the next tournament, if they continue, they could be starting. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think it speaks volumes that even the young players who will be starting, these young players are not random talents. They're Pedri, Fermin Lopez, like they're top players. And I think I will go back on something I said off podcast a while back, which was Argentina are probably still my favourite to World Cup. I think it's
Mhm.
Spain again. I think it's the level of depth and talent and just range of profiles in the squad. You can't really look past them, and they've got the winning experience. They've got the perfect blend of being able to play vibrant attacking football and high possession football, but then
Mm.
also popping up with the goals when it matters. I think they're so complete that, yeah, I honestly don't see too much point in having huge debates over who's in goal and who's up front and who's in midfield because whoever's playing is going to be a very, very good player. There's no passengers in this entire squad, no matter where you look.
Yeah, exactly. And Spain, as you said, they have to be the favorites. I mean, anything less than the final is a disappointing result for them. The expectations are so high for them, especially now. If you, as you said, Argentina. I mean, everyone will have the world champions as their favorites, definitely. But if you look at their performances in the friendly, Lionel Scaloni has also said many players are kind of taking this seat for granted. So a lot of changes will have to be made before the World Cup, and the friendlies they are playing against the opponents are not really testing them enough. So Argentina probably, Messi fans would choose them as their favorite, and a lot of football curious to believe that the World Cup, the team who wins the World Cup always has an advantage with the confidence they carry in the next World Cup, just like we saw with France. But whether it's my bias or whether it's my years of watching football, I do think anything less than a final for Spain is out of the picture. I think Spain's definitely a top 2 team, whether the other team is France or England or a dark horse, like a deep Morocco run or a Croatia run, like again, like 2 years in the 3 years in a row, Croatia on the podium. It's never say never. So yeah, for the World Cup, it's such a. I mean, if you predict it, it's only 3 teams that everyone has favorites, but then 48 teams, anything could happen. Just really don't know which way the World Cup is gonna go if you close your eyes and don't look at the 3 favorites. So exciting months coming up. 70 days left only.
Yeah, and I'm for one, I'm very excited about the tournament. I think it's going to be interesting for sure how teams cope with the dynamics of being across 3 different countries, 3 very
Mm.
big countries at that. And what I'm really annoyed about is that the Finalissimo got cancelled because I
Oh
think that would have
yeah.
been such a big test of both Spain and Argentina to see where they're at. And if they did go ahead and play it, I think Spain would have won quite comfortably. I don't think
Mm.
Argentina have been playing that well. in the
Mm.
last few months. And in these friendlies, yeah, they're last minute organized friendlies against much lower opposition. So wouldn't read too much into them. But even like Emi Martinez is coming out and saying that they're not playing well.
Yeah.
So it just seems a bit of discontent. And compared to where they were in 2022 with Messi at top form and Rodrigo de Paul just smashing everyone in midfield, that it feels like a different kind of squad, a different profile of player in the squad, and where remains to be seen how they'll adapt to it.
Mhm.
But Spain look very, very sharp. They have so many players in good form. The ones who aren't in good form still provide a lot of experience, like Rodri, for example. He's had a tough year or so, but
Yeah.
if he gets back to his best in the tournament, he's the best midfielder in the world. So,
Yeah.
um, and that's alongside the other best midfielder in the world, Pedri. So, yeah, I now really can't look past Spain too much, but you never know in football, and all it will take is one Unai Simon mistake, and then suddenly
Don't jinx it, man. Don't curse it. We just talked about Unai Simon and we praised him so much, and now you say, all it takes is one mistake. No, don't speak it into existence. We don't need a mistake from Unai Simon.
oh, we really don't, because then it will put everything I've said about starting your best keeper. They'll feel that's a shame, and someone will clip it up and call me
Yeah.
idiot online.
Yeah.
But what also, yeah, as I think I alluded to this, but I think for future tournaments,
Mm,
Spain are also very well set with the young players they have, not even in this tournament.
mm,
And in the next one, you could have potentially Carlos Romero at left back. You could have
mm.
Mark Bernal, Molero, Gonzalo Garcia. Like, there's serious, serious amount of talent coming through in Spain right now. Even someone like Mosquera might not get into this squad, but then come the next tournament, as Spain under 21's captain right now, he could be
Yeah.
very much a starter. And Mark Pubil, he's only 22. Joan Garcia is only, what, 23?
2025 on the
Oh, it's 25. I mean, that's still very
25.
young for a
Yeah.
keeper.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, there isn't a single position now that you think they have a big weakness. Whereas a few years ago, you just had centre back and centre forward in 2022, for example.
Oh yeah.
But now they've got so many different options that someone like Danny Vivian or Lenormand, who were in the last squad and Lenormand started in 2024, they might not even make the plane as well. And it's just the level of competition is crazy.
Yeah, Laporte, down there. Um, and for the right back position, Marcos Llorente, Dani Carvajal, Pedro Porro. How many of them are you gonna take? You're gonna take all three. You're gonna take two definitely. Eric Garcia is also a versatile option. He can play right back, center back, defensive midfielder. So yeah, it's like, oh my God, my pot is too full. What can I do? Spain are in kind of that kind of situation. My plate is full. I can't eat. That kind of situation. But I think we talked a lot about Spain and the international break and the World Cup preview today. Just before we end, I mean, I want to know if there's any player for you that you think who play a little bit better when they wear the colors of La Roja instead of when they play for their club, or rather, they're not that all visible when they play for their club. There are a lot of players for many countries. I've seen that, they come alive at World Cup tournaments, whether it's like Shaqiri or whether it's Ochoa, like players like that. Is there someone like that for Spain who not World Cup, but like even when you see them at friendlies or even when you see them in a different environment, suddenly come alive? Any name comes to your mind?
Well, we've already talked about one of them, which is Oyarzabal.
Mm,
In the last few years, he's always delivered for Spain, even when he's not
mm,
playing well at club level.
mhm,
Another one which Barcelona fans may disagree, I think is Dani Olmo. I think in 2022, when Spain already had a very good squad and it was a lot of kind of debate over who would be at left wing and midfield,
mm, mhm, mhm.
and suddenly Dani Olmo, who was at Leipzig at the time,
Yeah.
he came in and he wasn't someone I knew too much about before the tournament. And I'm thinking, there's so many other options here. Why is Dani Olmo in? But he was brilliant throughout the tournament. And it
Mhm.
ultimately got him his move to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, in international football, I think in every single nation, you can find players who turn up for their countries, even if they're not like hitting their top form at club level, or they're not that high regarded at club level, but they switch it up in a tournament.
Hmm.
Danny Welbeck for England springs to mind. But yeah, I think in this current squad, Danny Olmo is a wild card who, I don't think many are talking about his form for Barcelona because he's been in and out of the team. But in the tournament, he might find himself a starter by the end of the World Cup, and
Yeah.
he might come up in big moments. And he's someone who may have flown under the radar a bit. And if we look historically, Spain have always had that kind of player.
Hmm.
Um, Joan Capdevila springs to mind for, well, he was at Villarreal, but he was the left back in that Spain super team. And he's often the answer in pub quiz questions of who was the only player not from Barcelona or Real Madrid
In
to
the
win.
winning spot. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you look at names like Xavi, Iniesta,
Yeah.
Busquets, Xabi Alonso, and then you've got Capdevila there, who was a solid enough player, but solid if unremarkable, but he's World Cup winning left back.
Yeah.
And even so, I'd say even Cucurella right now, he's having a bit of a rough month for Chelsea, but I still think he is the starter for Spain, even if Carlos Romero is there as well, and Alex Grimaldo. There's a lot of different options there. And yeah, I think it is nice seeing Spain back to a level where you consider them world beaters, because after 2012, the 2014, 2018, even 2022 tournaments, they didn't
Mm.
go well at all. And they didn't really threaten too much of the Euros in between either.
Yeah.
But right now is probably the best Spanish football as a national team has been in well over 14 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they really forgot in a way to modernize their football. I mean, why would you want to do it as well? Because you want three competitions in a row playing your way, your brand of tiki taka football. But then over time, teams maybe figured it out. Teams kind of knew how to exploit it. Kind of became, you know, Pep Guardiola kind of like took it to England, and everyone kind of like got more time to analyze how these systems play and how the intricacies of a tiki taka system works. So until De La Fuente came and took over and completely like put some new energy into tiki taka play, they still play tiki taka, but they play more direct now. Until then, I think if De La Fuente hadn't come and if they had continued with Luis Enrique or someone who still, believed in a bit more traditional philosophies, maybe Spain would not have such a great 2024 tournament that they did. Also helps that De La Fuente has been the coach of the junior teams for like forever. He's coached under 15, 17, 19, 21. 22 Spanish teams. And so he knows the players that are coming up. He knows players like Oyarzabal. I think he's won a tournament with Oyarzabal, the under 19s at some point. So that's the advantage of having a coach who's kind of modernized the game and also has not had any club experience. He's just been in the setup ever since he's managed. He's just been in the national team setup in smaller roles, helping people go, helping groom young talents, and that led to success. That's a wonderful model to have for Spain and for 2024 Euros, and hopefully it leads to more magic in 2026.
Yeah. Let's see how it goes, because as I say, you never know in football. And
Yeah,
we've spent the last 43 minutes praising Spain, but who knows? A short quarterfinal exit could also
yeah.
end the
Oh
cup.
man,
Like,
please, please. I mean, I'm sure there's a podcast somewhere that's just like Tiki Tapas. Maybe it's but on more like an Italian aspect of football, and they are probably kind of just before the qualifiers, they were also probably praising the Italian team, and they were hoping they would make the World Cup, but that didn't happen. But thankfully, Dios mio, we don't have to sit through a World Cup without supporting our team. So feel bad for Italians. I called my Italian friend this morning. I'm like, bro, if you need to come on the podcast, if you need to rant, if you need to talk about anything, you're always welcome. And he said, I need more space. Give me some more time. I can't do it now. So maybe we'll have him on the podcast at some point, but definitely not to talk about Italy. Maybe something with La Liga teams go against Serie A teams, which is also not happening anytime soon. Um, so eventually he'll come on the podcast, I hope. But with that being said, I think that covers a very interesting episode of Tiki Tapas podcast. A break, international break took over this week, which is why also we also kind of took our own breaks, came a bit late this week. But next Monday we'll be back. The league is gonna resume. Champions League is on the way. Copa del Rey is on the way. And so many exciting players about to pick up form at the right time. And yeah, I mean, we already talked about what's coming in April at the beginning of this episode, and now it's just when we see you guys next Monday, we're gonna talk more about that particular week, and we will bring back our moments of the week and highlights of the week and the whole quiz segment that we did last episode. This was like a kind of like a chilled out, relaxed kind of conversational podcast. We didn't do any analysis. We didn't go deep into it. We didn't need to. Everyone's on break. It's the last break until August. Come on. No one's taking a break in the World Cup. No one's taking a summer vacation this season. So we deserved it. Everyone deserves it. Every creator is deserving of a break in the end of
Oh
time.
yeah, it is funny that you say that because I think fans just don't realize kind of as journalists, as creators, when we work in football,
Yeah,
when it comes to stuff like the international break, I'm actually so grateful. It
yeah,
means I have a break. With
exactly.
the amount of football we watch per week and the writing we do, the podcasts, the other videos, all the content. Yeah, like this last week and a half has been an absolute
It's
blessing.
been a godsend, bro.
And it's just so different because as a fan long before when I was younger, long before journalism or anything, I used to
Yeah,
hate the international break. I was thinking, oh, bring back the league, bring back the football, bring back the
yeah,
content.
yeah,
And
yeah,
now I can't wait for that. But
yeah.
last
Exactly.
one, the last one's until pretty much the World Cup final is going to be relentless until then.
End of July. We're in start of April, April, May, June. 4 months of relentless content creation, relentless writing articles, relentless podcast. And I'm also doing like bunch of live streams on my YouTube channel as well. You're creating your videos from Valencia on the spot. So 4 months, man, without a break. But well, what a wonderful way to kick off like this 4 months with as just to remind you, we are on Spotify now. So what a great way to kick off this 4 months of unlimited content from both of us on this podcast and on everywhere else you find us, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's on our YouTube. But with that being said, I think Raul, that pretty much sums it up. That pretty much covers the international break and Spain and everything we wanted to talk about. And is there anything else that you want to plug in right before we end this episode? Anything, any last thoughts? Any Spanish that you learned that you want to plug in?
I'll stick with my usual hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto. Sí, sí, sí. And we will see you next Monday. We won't be changing the schedule to Thursday. It was a one off because of the break. But yeah, we'll be back on your screens next Monday. And for the first time, we can say on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So we will see you in the next one. Hasta la próxima semana. Adios. Ciao. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.